I knew the end was near when I found myself calculating the trajectory of a heavy crystal paperweight into the skull of a 28-year-old man named Bradford. Bradford was our new COO. He was also the CEO's son, a man who thought synergy was a verb and whose only qualification for running a multimillion-dollar strategic accounts firm in Las Vegas was that he once organized a frat party that didn't get raided by the cops. I'm Vivian. I'm 45, I run on espresso and spite, and for the last 5 years, I have been the structural integrity of Apex Strategy Group. You know that load-bearing wall in a house that, if removed, causes the roof to collapse and kill everyone inside? That's me. I'm the wall. And Bradford was currently trying to hang a velvet painting of himself on me using a sledgehammer. Vivian, we need to talk about your energy, Bradford said. Leaning back in a Herman Miller chair, he didn't know how to adjust, creating a squeaking noise that sounded like a dying mouse. He was wearing a vest that cost more than my first car and had a haircut that screamed I sue people for sport. You're just not radiating that growth mindset we need for Q3. My dad says you're vital, but honestly, I see a lot of legacy thinking. Legacy thinking. That's corporate speak for you're older than me. You actually know how the sausage is made, and you refuse to use TikTok to recruit account managers. I stared at him. I didn't blink. I've stared down casino magnates who were losing $40 million a night and cartel lawyers trying to legitimize cash flows through shell companies. A nepotism baby with a shiny MBA wasn't going to make me flinch. Bradford, I said, my voice smooth like concrete pouring into a grave. I just saved the monolith account. You know, the one that pays for the leased Porsche you parked in the handicap spot downstairs? I haven't taken a vacation day since 2019. My energy is focused on keeping the ship from hitting the iceberg you seem intent on steering us toward. He waved a hand dismissively, like he was shooing away a fly or a pesky labor law. Relax, Vive, you're so intense. Look, take a break. Seriously. Go eat pasta in Italy or whatever women your age do to find themselves. We've got this covered. I've got some frat buddies coming in to shadow the ops team. Fresh eyes, you know? I felt a vein in my forehead throb. It had its own pulse, a little drumbeat of rage. I needed out. Not forever, just long enough to remember what oxygen tasted like without the flavor of recycled air conditioning and desperation. Listen, before I tell you how I burned this place to the ground using nothing but a cell phone and a glass of Pinot Grigio, do me a favor. If you're enjoying the incoming wreckage of a rich kid's ego, hit subscribe and maybe drop a like and comment. It fuels my cold, dead heart, so I booked the trip. The Amalfi Coast, 3 weeks. Unheard of in my industry. In Vegas, if you leave your desk for lunch, someone tries to steal your client list. Leaving the country was basically inviting a coup, but I was tired. My bones felt like they were made of lead pipes. The farewell happy hour was a joke. It was held in the break room, catered by a sandwich shop that I'm pretty sure washes their lettuce in tap water from the erratic toilets next door. Bradford stood on a chair to make a speech. We're going to Miss Vivian, he announced, holding a lukewarm beer. But let's be real, guys. Sometimes, you gotta trim the fat to let the muscle grow. We need speed. We need agility. We don't need dead weight and leadership. The room went silent. You could hear the hum of the refrigerator. My team, people I had trained, people I had shielded from the CEO's tantrums, people whose mortgages were paid because I closed deals at 3 a.m. on Christmas Eve, looked at the floor. They knew. They knew he was insulting me to my face, and they were too terrified of the Prince Regent to say a word. Dead weight, I repeated, swirling my Diet Coke. It's a metaphor, Vive. Don't get sensitive, Bradford laughed, hopping down. Just enjoy your pasta. Leave the heavy lifting to the big dogs. I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the insecurity masked by cologne and teeth-whitening strips. I saw a boy playing business with his daddy's money, and I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't sadness. Wasn't even anger, really. It was the click of a safety being disengaged. You're right, Bradford, I said, placing my unfinished drink on the table. I should let the big dogs eat. I walked out of that office without clearing my browser history or saying goodbye. I left my laptop on the desk. I left my files locked. As I walked to the elevator, the air felt different. It was the calm before a storm, but I wasn't the one who was going to get wet. I had a plane to catch. And as I descended to the lobby, leaving the neon glow of the strip behind me, I had a strange premonition that when I came back, the locks on the doors would be changed, or I'd own the building. I just didn't know it would happen so fast. The Amalfi Coast smells like lemons and money. It's a scent that screams, your problems are too poor to find you here. I was 3 days in, sitting on a terrace that hung off the side of a cliff like a suicidal goat, sipping a glass of wine that cost more than Bradford's education. For the first 48 hours, I had the phantom vibration syndrome. I kept reaching for my phone, expecting a crisis. Did the merger go through? Did the SEC audit the Henderson account? Did Bradford accidentally reply all with a dick pic? But the phone was silent. It was unnerving. In my line of work, silence isn't peace, it's an ambush. On the third day, the phone finally rang. I looked at the screen. Apex HQ Bradford. I debated letting it go to voicemail. I was watching the sunset bleed purple and orange into the Tyrrhenian Sea. I didn't want to hear his nasal whine. but old habits die harder than cockroaches in a nuclear winter. I picked up. Vivian, Bradford's voice came through, choppy and tinny. He sounded breathless, like he'd just run up a flight of stairs or finished embezzling funds. Bradford, I said, keeping my eyes on a yacht drifting in the distance. I'm on vacation. Unless the building is on fire, this counts as billable consulting hours. Yeah, about that, he said. There was a pause. I heard papers shuffling. We've been reviewing the headcount, the direction of the firm, and honestly, it's not working out. I took a sip of wine. What's not working out, Bradford? The fact that I do all the work and you take all the credit? See? That's the attitude. It's toxic vibe. It's bad for the culture. We want a culture of yes, and you're a culture of let's check the compliance laws first. He let out a short, nervous laugh. Anyway, Dad and I talked. We're terminating your contract, effective immediately. Cause, insubordination, and let's call it performance stagnation. I froze, not out of fear, out of sheer awe at the audacity. Performance stagnation? I brought in $12 million last quarter, Bradford. You brought in a foosball table. Don't need lazy people, Vivian, he snapped, his voice dropping the fake niceness. We need grinders. You're on a beach. We're here working. That says everything. Don't bother coming back. We'll mail you your personal effects. Anything on the company laptop is ours. Security has been notified. The line went dead. He hung up on me. He fired me over the phone while I was 6,000 miles away calling me. A woman who missed her own mother's hip surgery to close the impossible Venetti deal lazy? I lowered the phone. I looked at the black screen. I should have been crying. I should have been screaming. I should have been throwing the expensive crystal glass against the ancient stone wall, but I felt cold. I felt the kind of cold that burns. It was a clarity so sharp it could cut diamonds. Rough call, the voice came from the table next to mine. I turned, sitting there. Looking like he had been sculpted out of olive wood and bespoke tailoring, was Dante Morty. If you work in high-stakes corporate strategy in Nevada, you know Dante. He's the CEO of Obsidian Global, my firm's biggest, fiercest, and most ruthless competitor. Dante was the shark that swam in the deep water while Bradford was playing with rubber ducks in the bathtub. We had been rivals for a decade. We had stolen clients from each other, blocked each other's acquisitions, and engaged in a silent war of attrition that would make the Cold War look like a pillow fight. He was wearing linen. He was drinking espresso. He looked amused. You have no idea, I said, placing my phone on the table face down. Just got fired by a child wearing a vest. Dante smiled. It wasn't a predatory smile. It was the smile of a chess player who just watched his opponent blunder their queen. He signaled the waiter for another glass. Bradford? Dante asked. He knew the players. Bradford, I confirmed. Apparently, I'm dead weight and lazy. Dante laughed. It was a rich, deep sound that startled a seagull nearby. Lazy, you? Vivian, you're the only reason I haven't bought that company and turned it into a parking lot for my employees. I've been trying to poach you for 7 years. I know, I said. I have the emails. And now, Dante said, leaning forward, his eyes locking onto mine. You're a free agent in Italy. Sitting next to me. Coincidence? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Fate, he countered. Or maybe I have a better travel agent. The question is, Vivian, are you going to go home and cry, or are you going to help me destroy them? I looked at the wine. I looked at the sunset. I thought about Bradford's smug voice calling me lazy. I thought about the 5 years of missed birthdays, the stress ulcers, the loyalty I had poured into a bucket with a hole in the bottom. I picked up my glass and clinked it against his. I don't want to just destroy them, Dante, I whispered, and the ocean breeze carried my voice like a curse. I want to bury them. I've been waiting for this call. To understand why Dante Morty was sitting next to me on an Italian cliffside, offering me the nuclear codes to my former employer's destruction, you have to go back 2 years. Las Vegas is a small town draped in neon camouflage. Everyone knows everyone's dirt. 2 years ago, Obsidian Global, Dante's firm, was facing a crisis that would have vaporized a lesser company. One of his junior partners had gone rogue, embezzling client funds to cover a gambling addiction that spiraled into the 7 figures. The press caught wind of it. The rumors were starting to swirl like toilet water. My boss at the time, Bradford's father, the original tyrant, wanted me to leak the story. He wanted me to go to the Review Journal and hand them the smoking gun that would sink Dante. It was the smart business move. It would have eliminated our biggest competitor overnight. But I didn't do it. I operate on a code. It's a rusty, beat-up code, but it's mine. You beat the competition because you're better, not because you shank them in the alley while they're tying their shoes. Plus, I knew Dante. I knew he was honorable, even if he was ruthless. Didn't know about the embezzlement. He was being blindsided. So I called him, 2:00 a.m. on a Tuesday. Dante, I had said, check your ledger for the Henderson account. Look for transfers to a shell corp in the Caymans, and fire your VP of Finance before 6:00 a.m. or you're going to prison. There was silence on the line. Then a quiet, why are you telling me this, Vivian? Because I want to beat you fair and square, Morty. Not because your staff is incompetent. He fixed it. He fired the guy, reimbursed the funds from his own pocket before anyone noticed, and the story died before it was born. He saved his company, and he never forgot. He sent me a bottle of vintage scotch that cost more than my car with a note, name your price. Anytime, I never cashed it in. Until now. Back in Amalfi, Dante watched me over the rim of his espresso cup. The sea below us was turning a deep, bruised purple. You remember the offer I made you that night? Dante asked quietly. VP of Strategy, equity partner, full autonomy. I remember I said. I declined. I told you I was loyal. Loyalty? Dante spat the word out like a grape seed. Loyalty is a currency, Vivian. You spend it all on a company that just declared bankruptcy on your character. Bradford doesn't know what he just did. He didn't just fire an employee. He pulled the pin on a grenade and put it in his pocket. I swirled my wine. I don't want a job, Dante, not yet. He raised an eyebrow. Oh, you plan to retire? Knit sweaters? Maybe start a podcast? No, I smiled, and it was a smile that didn't reach my eyes. It stayed on my lips, sharp and dangerous. I want to watch them drown first. I want to dismantle the house I built, brick by brick. And then, when there is nothing left but dust and Bradford's tears, maybe we can talk about employment. Dante leaned back, a look of pure delight spreading across his face. He loved this. He lived for this. This was blood sport to him. So he said, pulling out his phone, where do we start? Do we poach the staff? Do we underbid their contracts? No, I said, that's too loud. Bradford is paranoid. If he sees you coming, he'll lawyer up. We need to be ghosts. We need to rot the foundation so he doesn't realize the roof is falling until it crushes him. I reached into my bag and pulled out my personal tablet. It wasn't connected to the company servers. I wasn't stupid, but it contained something far more valuable, my brain and my contacts. I have 3 calls to make, I said. Just checking in, friendly chats. I won't violate my NDA. I won't say a bad word about Apex. I'll just ask questions. Let silence do the heavy lifting. Dante signaled the waiter again. Bring the bottle, he ordered. Then he looked at me. Who's first, Mr. Takagi? I said. The casino magnate, the one who hates instability. The one whose contract renews in, oh, look at that, 14 days. Dante grinned. I love it when you're evil. I'm not evil, Dante, I said, dialing the number. I'm just efficient. And I'm currently unemployed. I have a lot of free time. The art of corporate sabotage isn't about screaming. It's about whispering. If you scream, you look crazy. If you whisper, people lean in to listen. I sat on that terrace, the Italian moon rising like a silver coin, and I made the calls. First up, Mr. Takagi. He runs 3 of the biggest casinos on the Strip. He's old school. He doesn't sign contracts with companies. He signs contracts with people. He trusted me because I once flew a notary to his yacht in the Mediterranean during a storm to get a deal closed. Vivian-san, his voice boomed. I was told you are on vacation. Why are you working? I'm not working, Mr. Takagi, I said, keeping my voice light, breezy. I'm just enjoying some wine in Amalfi. But well, I wanted to personally apologize. Apologize for what? The tone shifted instantly, from warm to wary. I won't be overseeing your renewal next week, I said. Management has decided to go in a different direction regarding my employment. I just wanted to make sure you were in good hands. Has Bradford reached out? He's enthusiastic. Silence. Long, heavy silence. Bradford? Takagi asked. The boy who wears the sneakers to board meetings? He has a very modern approach, I said. I'm sure he'll explain his vision to you. I just didn't want you to think I abandoned you without saying goodbye. It was sudden. Sudden, Takagi repeated. I see. Thank you, Vivian. Enjoy your wine. Click, I looked at Dante. He's going to call Bradford within 10 minutes. He's going to scream at Bradford, Dante corrected. Next call, Sarah Jenkins, CEO of Verd Tech, a self-made billionaire who hated tech bros with a passion. She worked with me because I was a woman who survived the boys' club. Sarah, I said, how's the IPO prep? Vive, it's hell. I need you to look at the S1 filing drafts this Thursday. I don't trust my lawyers. Ah, Sarah, I can't, I said, injecting a note of genuine regret. I'm no longer with Apex. Effective today. They felt I wasn't a culture fit for the new leadership. Excuse me? Sarah's voice went up an octave. Who the hell is the new leadership? Bradford took over operations, I said. He's bringing in some of his peers to modernize the strategy. It's very fresh. I'm sure you'll love the energy. I don't want energy, Vivian. I want competence. I have an IPO in 3 weeks. Does this Bradford kid know SEC regulations? I can't speak to his qualifications, I said, which is the most damning thing you can say about anyone. But I'm sure he'll do his best. This is a disaster, she muttered. I need to review our termination clause. Page 45. Paragraph C, I said from memory. Performance contingency. Just in case you're an angel, goodbye. Third call, the whale, Arthur P. Sterling, old money, real estate, the kind of guy who owns the land the casinos are built on. He hated change. He hated youth. He hated surprise. Arthur, I said, I'm calling from Italy. Vivian, bring me back some olive oil. I will. Listen, Arthur, I wanted to give you a heads up. My access to your secure files has been revoked. I've been let go. Let go? He sounded like I'd just told him the sun had exploded. Yes, just a shifting of the guard. But don't worry, Bradford is taking personal charge of your portfolio. The sun? Arthur scoffed. The one who tried to sell me NFTs at the Christmas party? He's very forward-thinking. He's an idiot. Vivian, does this trigger the key man clause in our contract? I paused. I let the silence hang there for 3 seconds. You'd have to check with legal, Arthur. But I believe clause 14? B states that if the lead strategist is removed without a 30-day transition period, the client has the right to freeze assets pending a review. Freezing it, Arthur barked. I'm freezing it all. No one touches my money but you. I hung up. I turned to Dante. He was staring at me with something resembling fear and arousal. You didn't just burn the bridge, he said. You convinced the bridge to set itself on fire. Bradford wanted fresh eyes, I said, pouring another glass. I just gave him a fresh perspective on unemployment. Within an hour, my phone started blowing up with notifications. Not from the office, from industry friends. Rumors were flying. Apex is unstable. Apex lost Vivian. Clients are panicking. I imagined Bradford back in Vegas. It was probably 10 o'clock a.m. there. He was probably just walking in with his latte, ready to disrupt the industry. He was about to get disrupted right in the face. The thing about being a lazy employee who actually does everything is that you tend to build systems that only you understand. I didn't do it on purpose to be malicious. I did it because I was the only one who cared enough to organize the chaos. Bradford, in his infinite wisdom, assumed that strategy was just talking smooth in meetings. He didn't realize that strategy is 90% data organization, historical context, and file encryption. Back in Vegas, the sun was high and the temperature was climbing. And so was the panic. I knew exactly what was happening because I knew exactly what Bradford would try to do first: access the gold master file. It's a spreadsheet I built over 5 years. It contains the personal birthdays of every CEO's child, specific Scotch preferences of every board member, the blackmail-worthy secrets we protect for our clients, and the master timelines for every active deal. It lived on a secure cloud drive, my personal cloud drive, which I paid for. When Bradford fired me, he cut off my company email, standard procedure. But he forgot that the gold master wasn't on the company server. It was shared to the company server from my private account. At 10:15 a.m. Vegas time, I got a notification on my phone. Access request. Bradford Apex has requested access to master strategy, do not delete. I swiped left. Deny 2 minutes later. Access request. IT admin has requested access. Deny. Then came the emails to my personal account. From Bradford, sent from iPhone, subject: urgent Vivian, we can't open the client files. The password isn't working. Send it over immediately. This is company property. I took a photo of my half-eaten calamari and replied. To Bradford, subject: urgent dear Bradford, per our conversation, I am dead weight. Dead weight cannot type passwords. Also, that file resides on my personal intellectual property. Consulting fee to unlock is $5,000 per hour, minimum 40 hours, payable in advance. Best Vive. I showed Dante the phone. He choked on his water. You're holding the data hostage? No, I corrected. I'm protecting my intellectual property. I built that database on weekends, unpaid. If they wanted it, they should have bought it or not fired me. Back at Apex, the walls were closing in. I could picture it. The Takagi renewal was stuck because nobody knew the specific compliance codes for the gaming license, codes I had memorized. Sarah Jenkins was demanding the S1 draft, which was currently a read-only PDF because I held the edit rights. Arthur Sterling's lawyers had likely already served a cease and desist on any movement of funds. My friend Sheila, the receptionist, never underestimate the receptionist. She knows everything, sent me a text via WhatsApp. Sheila, OMG, it's a war zone. Bradford is screaming at it. He threw a stapler. Takaga's assistant just called and canceled the lunch meeting. Bradford is sweating through his vest. Miss you, Zoe, I texted back. Grab some popcorn, honey. It's only Act 1. But the real kicker wasn't the files. It was the performance clause I had mentioned to Sarah. See, I wrote the contracts for our biggest clients. And because I didn't trust the old CEO, and I definitely didn't trust Bradford, I slipped in a tiny clause in the boilerplate text 3 years ago. Clause 17D, continuity of care. In the event that the senior account strategist, V. Miller, is removed from the account for any reason other than gross misconduct or voluntary resignation, the client reserves the right to terminate the contract immediately without penalty and receive a prorated refund of all retainer fees. Bradford had fired me for performance stagnation, not gross misconduct. And I certainly didn't resign. He had just triggered a refund clause for 60% of the company's revenue. I checked my bank account online. Severance pay hadn't hit yet, that was fine. By the time they realized what was happening, they wouldn't have enough cash in the bank to pay for the office coffee, let alone my severance. Dante, I said, looking up from the phone, how much cash reserves does Obsidian have right now? Enough, he said, eyes narrowing. Why? Because I said, watching a fishing boat bob in the harbor. Apex is going to have a liquidity crisis in about 48 hours. They're going to have to refund 3 major retainers. They won't be able to make payroll. Dante stood up. He walked to the edge of the terrace. He looked out at the sea, calculating. If they miss payroll, Dante said slowly, they breach their covenants with the bank. Exactly, I said, and when the bank calls the loan, the company goes into receivership, Dante finished, or they look for a buyer. He turned back to me. The look on his face was pure predatory joy. Vivian, he said, you're terrifying, marry me. I don't date competitors, I said, but I do accept consulting fees. Shall we draft the buyout offer? Every coup needs a lawyer. Mine was Marcus, the general counsel at Apex. Marcus was a man who wore bow ties and hated uncertainty. He had been trying to get Bradford to sign compliance paperwork for 6 months, but Bradford was too busy ideating to sign legal documents. I knew something Bradford didn't. I knew that the board of directors hadn't actually formally ratified Bradford's appointment as COO yet. It was on the agenda for next month. Technically, Bradford was interim COO, and interim COOs do not have the authority to fire senior executives without board approval. I waited until 8 p.m. Italian time, 11 a.m. Vegas, to call Marcus. Vivian, Marcus answered on the first ring. He sounded like he was hiding under a desk. Please tell me this is a nightmare and I'm going to wake up. It's real, Marcus. Bradford fired me while I was eating risotto. He's an idiot, Marcus hissed. He didn't run it by me. I found out when HR sent the ticket. Vivian, Takaga's lawyers just faxed a termination notice. Citing Clause 17D, did you write that clause? I write comprehensive contracts, Marcus. You signed off on them. I didn't think they'd actually fire you. He sighed, a sound of deep existential fatigue. Vivian, we're bleeding out. The refunds? We don't have the liquidity. Bradford spent the reserve cash on the new office renovation. The creative pod with the beanbags, of course he did, I said. Marcus, I have a question. Did the board vote on Bradford's permanent status yet? Silence. Marcus, no, he whispered. The meeting is next week, so I said, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. He acted outside his authority. He fired a key executive, triggering massive financial penalties without board approval. That sounds like, what's the legal term? Breach of fiduciary duty? It is, Marcus said, it absolutely is. And if the board finds out that the interim COO just bankrupted the company, they'll remove him, Marcus said. But Vivian, it's too late. The clients are gone. The damage is done. The stock value is going to tank as soon as this leaks. Exactly, I said, which makes it the perfect time for a white knight to swoop in. What are you saying? I'm saying that I'm sitting with a deeply concerned investor who hates to see good companies fail due to bad management. An investor who has the capital to cover the refunds and stabilize the ship. But he would need full control. Marcus paused. Morty, I can neither confirm nor deny, I said. But if an offer were to land on the chairman's desk within the hour, do you think the board would consider it? Consider it? Marcus laughed, a manic, desperate sound. Vivian, if someone offers to save their stock options, they'll personally pack Bradford's bags and throw him out the window. Good, I said. Check your email in 10 minutes. I hung up and looked at Dante. He was already typing on his laptop. The buyout offer was ready. We had drafted it over dessert. It was an insultingly low offer. Pennies on the dollar. But it included a promise to cover the immediate debts and retain the staff. It was a lifeline thrown to a drowning man, but the rope was made of barbed wire. Send it, I said. Dante hit send. The beauty of it was the timing. It was lunchtime in Vegas. The board members were checking their phones. They were seeing the panic. They were seeing the client cancellations. And suddenly, ping, an offer, a way out. Now, I said. Pouring the last of the wine, we wait. You know, Dante said, closing his laptop. You're scary, I like it. But what happens to you? Do you come with the furniture? I'm not furniture, Dante, I said. I'm the architect. And if I come back, it's not as an employee, it's as the landlord. The sun began to set on day 4. In Vegas, the storm was raging. Here, the sea was calm. I took a deep breath. The air tasted sweet. It tasted like victory. But the best part was yet to come. I wanted to see the look on Bradford's face. And thanks to modern technology, I was going to get my chance. The emergency board meeting was called for 4 p.m. Vegas time. I wasn't invited, obviously. But Marcus, bless his bow-tie-wearing heart, left his phone line open on the conference table. He put it face down, muted, so I could listen. Dante and I sat in his hotel suite, huddled around my iPhone like we were listening to a radio broadcast of the moon landing. Gentlemen and Linda, the chairman's voice boomed. That was old man Henderson. He sounded furious. We have lost 30% of our projected annual revenue in 6 hours. Can someone explain to me why our stock is trending on Twitter under the hashtag #ApexFail? It's a temporary setback, Bradford's voice squeaked. He sounded smaller now, less arrogant. Vivian was. She was holding us back. This is just the market adjusting. The market isn't adjusting, you moron, that was Linda. She represented the teacher's pension fund that owned 15% of the company. The market is fleeing. Takagi pulled out, sterling frozen. Jenkins is threatening to sue. You triggered the refund clauses. Did you even read the contracts before you fired the woman who wrote them? I assumed. Bradford stammered. You assumed, Henderson growled. You're an interim COO, Bradford. You don't get to assume. You get to execute orders. And you just executed the company. I can fix it. Bradford yelled. I'll call them. I'll smooth it over. They won't take your calls, Marcus spoke up. His voice was calm, the voice of the executioner. I spoke to Takaga's counsel. They will only deal with Vivian Miller, period. Well, hire her back, Henderson shouted. Give her a raise, give her a pony, I don't care, just get her back. She declined, Marcus said. She said she's enjoying her vacation. However, I squeezed Dante's hand. This was it. However, Marcus continued. We have received a formal acquisition offer. It's aggressive, but it's a cash deal. Immediate liquidity. It covers the refunds and stabilizes the stock. Who is it? Linda asked. Obsidian Global, Marcus said. The room erupted. Morty, the enemy, he'll gut us. He's offering to keep the brand, Marcus lied, well, partially. He guarantees client retention. Because? Well, the offer implies that he has secured the cooperation of the key relationships. He is Vivian, Henderson realized aloud. The defeat in his voice was heavy. He got her. The moment you fired her, Bradford, she went to him. It's a hostile takeover. Bradford screamed, "You can't do this. My dad built this company. Your dad is in a coma in nursing care, and you just destroyed his legacy," Henderson snapped. "You have a fiduciary duty to the shareholders. If we don't take this deal, we're bankrupt by Friday." "Do we have a motion?" "Motion to accept the Obsidian offer," Linda said immediately. Seconded, another voice said, and Henderson added, his voice cold. "Motion to terminate Bradford's employment, effective immediately for cause, gross negligence." Seconded, Linda practically shouted. "No, you can't." Bradford was crying now, actually crying. "I'm the COO, security." Henderson said, "Escort him out." I heard the heavy doors open. I heard the scuffle of feet. I heard Bradford's muffled protests fading down the hallway. "All in favor?" "Aye. The motion carries," Henderson said. "Marcus, call Morty. Tell him he owns the place." Dante looked at me. He didn't smile, he just nodded. It was a solemn moment. We had just killed a company and birthed a new empire. "Well," Dante said, picking up his phone as it began to ring. "I guess I have to go to work." I corrected him. "We have to go to work." "Right," he said, answering the call. "This is Dante." "Yes, Marcus, I heard. We accept. Have the papers ready. I'll be there in 12 hours. He hung up. "Pack your bags, Vivian. We're going to Vegas." I looked at the Amalfi Coast one last time. It was beautiful. But there was nothing quite as beautiful as the sound of Bradford losing his job. We flew private, obviously. Dante didn't do commercial. And frankly, neither did I anymore. We landed in Las Vegas at 10 a.m. the next day. The desert heat hit me like a blow dryer, dry and unforgiving. It felt like home. We drove straight to the Apex building. The signage was still up, but everyone knew it was a ghost sign now. The acquisition had hit the news cycle at midnight. Obsidian Global acquires Apex Strategy in shock fire sale. I wore white. A crisp white power suit, sharp enough to cut glass. Dante wore black. We looked like the chess pieces that had just cleared the board. When we walked into the lobby, the security guard, old Frank, dropped his sandwich. "Miss Miller," he stammered, "I thought—" "I'm back, Frank," I said, smiling. "But my badge won't work." "Use the master key." He buzzed us in. The elevator ride was silent. When the doors opened on the 40th floor, the office was dead quiet. People were huddled in cubicles, whispering. Boxes were packed. Vibe was apocalyptic. Then they saw us. Sheila gasped. She stood up behind the reception desk. "Vivian." "Hi, Sheila," I said. "You can unpack. Nobody is getting fired today, except the people who deserve it." A ripple went through the room, relief, confusion, awe. We walked straight to the executive wing. Bradford's office door was open. It was being cleaned out by 2 interns. His vest was still on the coat rack, a sad relic of a failed regime. We walked into the boardroom. The board was there. Henderson, Linda, the rest of them. They looked tired. They looked like they had aged 10 years in 24 hours. When I walked in next to Dante, the air left the room. "Vivian," Henderson said, standing up. He looked ashamed. "We didn't know. You didn't ask," I said simply. "You let a child drive the bus and you're surprised he drove it off a cliff." "We're fixing it," Linda said. "We accepted the deal." "Dante is?" "Well, he's the owner now." Dante stepped forward. He commanded the room without raising his voice. "Apex is now a subsidiary of Obsidian, but it will operate independently under one condition." He gestured to me. "Vivian isn't coming back as senior strategist," Dante said. "She's coming back as president of the Apex division. She has full autonomy. She answers only to me. And frankly, given how you all handled this, I'd suggest you listen to her." I looked at them. These people who had watched me work for 5 years and then let me be fired over the phone. "First order of business," I said, throwing a folder onto the table. "Takagi is back." I texted him from the plane. "Sterling is unfreezing the assets. Sarah Jenkins is sending over the S1 for review." The board let out a collective sigh of relief. "Second order of business," I continued. "We're removing the creative pod and putting the desks back. This is a place of business, not a daycare." "Agreed," Henderson said quickly. "And third," I said, leaning on the table, looking each of them in the eye. "If anyone ever questions my energy or calls me lazy again, I won't just leave. I will take every client, every file, and every stapler, and I will start my own firm across the street, and I will bury you so deep you'll need a drilling rig to find sunlight. Do we understand each other?" "Crystal clear," Linda said. She actually smiled. She liked a winner. "Good," I said. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a company to save again." I walked out of the boardroom. I walked down the hall to my old office. It was exactly as I had left it. My laptop was there. My plant was a little wilted, but alive. I sat down in my chair. It squeaked just a little. Dante leaned in the doorway. "Not bad, Madam President." "It'll do," I said. "You know," he said. "Bradford is apparently trying to sue us for wrongful termination." "Let him," I said, booting up my computer. I have his browser history from the company server. "I don't think he wants that read in court." Dante laughed. "Remind me never to cross you." "Too late," I said. "You already bought me." 3 months later, the merger was complete. Apex was profitable again. In fact, we were up 20%. Turns out, when you remove the nepotism and the fear, people actually work better. Who knew? Bradford had moved to Chelum to become a lifestyle coach. I assume that means he's currently scamming tourists out of money for crystals. Good luck to him. I was in my office, which was now the corner suite that used to belong to the CEO. The view of the strip was incredible. The neon lights flickered below, a sea of bad decisions and lost dreams. I was the shark swimming above it all. My assistant buzzed me. "Vivian, there's a visitor. He doesn't have an appointment." "Who is it?" "It's Mr. Sterling SR, Bradford's father, the old CEO, the man who built the company and then handed it to his idiot son. He had recovered from his health scare. Send him in." The door opened. Robert Sterling walked in. He looked frail, leaning on a cane, but his eyes were still sharp. He looked around the office, his old office. He looked at the new art on the walls. He looked at me behind his desk. "Vivian," he said, his voice raspy. "Robert," I said. I didn't stand up. I didn't owe him that anymore. He sat down in the guest chair. I heard what happened. I was indisposed. When I woke up, the company was sold. My son was in Mexico, and you were sitting here. "Life comes at you fast," I said. "You stole my company," he said. "It wasn't an accusation. It was a statement of fact. I saved your company," I corrected him. "Your son tried to drive it off a cliff. I just grabbed the wheel. The fact that the car now belongs to Obsidian is collateral damage." He stared at me for a long time. "I should have made you CEO 5 years ago." "Yes," I said, "you should have, but you wanted blood. You wanted the name on the door to match yours. That was your mistake, Robert. You confused DNA with competence." He sighed. He looked defeated. "Is there any way to buy it back?" I laughed. A genuine, hearty laugh. "Buy it back, Robert. The valuation has doubled since the acquisition. You can't afford it. And even if you could, Dante wouldn't sell, and neither would I. So that's it?" he asked. 40 years of my life gone. I stood up then. I walked over to the window. I looked out at the city. "It's not gone, Robert. It's just under new management, better management." I turned back to him. "You fired me for being lazy. You called me dead weight. Now, I'm the hardest working woman in the city, and I'm too busy to have this conversation." I pressed the intercom button. "Sheila, show Mr. Sterling out. I have a strategy call with Takagi in 5 minutes." Robert stood up slowly. He nodded once. A tip of the hat from one killer to another. He walked out. When the door clicked shut, I sat back down. I picked up my pen. I looked at the contract in front of me. It was a new deal, a massive deal, the kind of deal that makes careers. I signed it. My phone buzzed. Text from Dante. "Dinner? I found a place that serves wine better than Amalfi." I smiled. "I'm buying," I typed back. I got a raise. I put the phone down. I took a sip of my espresso. It was bitter, dark, and perfect. They thought they could throw me away. They thought I was just a cog in the machine. They forgot that I wasn't the cog. I was the mechanic. And when you mess with the mechanic, you don't get to drive the car anymore. I went back to work, after all. I had an empire to run. Funny how some people will throw you out the moment they feel untouchable, then beg you back once the foundation cracks. Vivian didn't raise her voice. She raised the stakes. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's legal, leveraged, and delivered with a smile. Thanks for sticking through the story. More twists coming soon.